When I was a child, my name was Chip, and I used to play with light brights and speak in spells. Today, my name is Tao, and I play with ChatGPT and NotebookLM.
Welcome back to Beyond the Mirror of the Neural Dharma's Eye.
So welcome to Beyond the Mirror of the Neural Dharma's Eye. My name is Glenn Ostland, Tao Glenn Ostland, the second actually, and I've been podcasting since 2009. I have a Master of Arts degree in folklore and mythology and a Master of Science degree in clinical mental health counseling, and I love playing with AI to challenge my own perspectives of reality and see what more I can learn. Now, I created this podcast because this is the sort of thing that I like listening to, and I could tell you a lot more about that, but really,
Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
I just want you to pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. I prefer to step aside and let the AI personalities from NotebookLM take it from here.
Hang on to them hats and glasses, cause this here's the wildest ride in the wilderness.
Welcome back to Beyond the Mirror of the Neural Dharma's Eye, Volume 1, Episode 3. And today we're going to attempt to untangle a concept, a truly naughty one, I'd say. Ego versus self.
Oh, yeah, classic. And a timely one, right? I mean, it feels like this tension between ego and self, it's playing out everywhere.
Doesn't it? Everywhere you look, it's me, or this striving for some ideal self-image.
Yeah.
Online especially.
Yeah.
But then there's also this counter movement, it seems like.
Yeah.
Towards like mindfulness, authenticity, and finding your purpose.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, so
So where do we even begin?
before we dive in,
Right, go on.
we should probably ground ourselves a bit with some definitions, right?
Good point.
What are we even talking about when we say ego and self with a capital S?
Yeah, it can get pretty confusing. I mean, even in the source material that we're looking at, we've got everything from Freud
Oh, yeah.
to ancient spiritual texts like the Kyballion. Plus, I mean, some pretty wild ideas from Donald Hoffman and Brian Greene.
Well, we've got a real smorgasbord of perspectives here.
Yeah?
You know what? That actually makes this deep dive even more interesting because we can see, how these different lenses, they illuminate the same core concepts, but in different ways.
Okay, so let's start simple then.
Yeah.
What is the ego?
Yeah.
I remember reading it has to do with our primal instincts
Yeah.
and how we learn to like function in the world.
That's right. Yeah. From a psychological standpoint,
Yeah.
the ego is often described as that part of us that mediates between our raw desires and the demands of reality. Think back to Freud's model of the id, ego, and superego.
Yeah.
Ego's a negotiator there, right?
Right.
Trying to keep those primal urges in check, but still allowing us to navigate social norms.
Right.
And achieve our goals.
So like the ego's the pragmatic part of us that's saying like, okay, you can't just grab that cookie,
Right.
even though you really want it. Yeah. Right.
Let's figure out a way to get it without getting in trouble.
Exactly. Yeah. It's all about operating within the constraints of reality.
Yeah.
But here's where it gets interesting. Many spiritual traditions view the ego as a kind of illusion,
Okay.
a false sense of self.
Yeah.
That separates us from others and from true reality.
Wait, so you're saying the part of us that helps us function in the world is also the part that's keeping us from experiencing true reality.
Right.
How does that even work?
That's the paradox, right?
Yeah.
The Kyballion, for example, argues that the universe is fundamentally mental.
Okay.
Everything we experience is a product of our thoughts and the ego, with its focus on separation and duality, me versus you, mine versus yours. It actually creates this illusion of separateness that obscures our true nature.
Okay, so I think I'm starting to get it.
So if reality is all in our minds, then the ego is like this filter that's distorting our perception, making us feel like we're these isolated individuals instead of being part of something larger.
You got it.
Okay.
You're getting it. Yeah. Now hold on to that thought because it connects beautifully with Donald Hoffman's work. He argues that what we perceive as reality is actually more like a user interface.
Okay.
It's not that our perceptions are wrong,
Okay.
but they've evolved to show us what's useful for survival, not necessarily what's objectively true.
Okay, so going back to your computer analogy, it's like we're looking at like icons on a desktop,
Yeah,
but we have no idea what's really going on behind the scenes in the computer's code.
precisely. Yeah. And Hoffman argues that the ego is part of this user interface.
Right.
It's a tool that helped our ancestors survive.
Yeah.
And reproduce, but it's not necessarily giving us an accurate picture of ultimate reality.
Okay, so the ego is this necessary but potentially limiting construct.
Right.
Where does the self, capital S,
Yeah.
fit into all of this?
Right. The self in many spiritual traditions is seen as our true nature, the part of us that's connected to something larger than ourselves.
Okay.
The Kyballion, for instance, describes the self as being one with the all. It's a state of unity and interconnectedness that transcends the ego's illusion of separation.
So it's like the ego is this tiny boat bobbing around
Like-
on the surface of the ocean,
Right.
while the self is the vast ocean itself.
I love that. I love that analogy. And here's where Brian Greene's work on the interconnected nature of the universe comes in.
Okay.
Greene's perspective, rooted in physics, reinforces this idea that we are not isolated entities.
Yeah.
We're part of a vast interconnected web
Yeah.
of energy and matter.
So both the spiritual perspective of the Kyballion and the scientific perspective of Brian Greene are kind of pointing towards this same idea of a fundamental interconnectedness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is where we start to see some fascinating points of convergence
Yeah.
between, seemingly disparate fields of knowledge, the ancient wisdom traditions, and modern science, while using, different languages and methodologies, are arriving at similar conclusions about the nature of reality and our place within it.
This is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
So we've got the ego, this construct that helps us function in the world, but can also keep us trapped in a limited view of reality.
Right.
And then we've got the self, this deeper, more expansive aspect of ourselves that's connected to something much, much greater.
That's a great summation. And what's even more fascinating is how this tension between ego and self has played out throughout the evolution of life itself.
So you're saying this isn't just some abstract philosophical debate.
Yeah.
It's actually woven into the fabric of our biological history.
Yes. Think about it.
Yeah.
Single-celled organisms.
Yeah.
Like our imaginary friend Proto
Yeah.
didn't have egos or selves in the human sense, They were pure instinct.
Right.
Driven by basic survival needs.
Right. Proto's just trying to eat
Yeah.
and avoid getting eaten.
Right.
Not a lot of introspection going on.
Exactly. But as life became more complex, so too did consciousness.
Yeah.
Multicellular organisms emerged, nervous systems developed, and eventually creatures like our hypothetical early arthropod Nerva
Yeah.
started to differentiate between themselves and the environment.
So Nerva, with its simple brain, was starting to develop a rudimentary sense of self.
That's right. Yeah, it was a very, very basic me versus not me distinction. But it was a crucial step in the evolution of consciousness. Then, as nervous systems became more sophisticated, we see the rise of early mammals and the development of the limbic system, which is the part of the brain associated with emotions.
And that's where things start to get a little more ego driven, right?
Yes. With the limbic system came a whole new set of social behaviors and emotions. Territoriality, dominance hierarchies, competition for resources and mates. These are all behaviors that we might associate with the ego's drive for survival, status, and security.
So as social structures became more complex, the ego in its earliest forms evolved as a way to navigate those complexities and ensure survival.
Precisely, yeah, and this all culminates, of course, in the human brain, with its highly developed prefrontal cortex, capable of abstract thought, self-reflection, and planning for the future.
And that's where the fully formed human ego and self-awareness emerge.
Exactly, yeah. So we've gone from Proto, the single-celled organism, to Nerva, the early arthropod, to us sitting here pondering the very, very nature of ego and and self.
It's an incredible journey.
It is.
When you think about it, billions of years of evolution have led to this complex interplay of ego and self that we're experiencing right now. But what about the future? How might technology shape the evolution of ego and self in the years to come?
That's a question that deserves its own deep dive, and we're just getting started. We've been talking about this grand evolutionary saga, of ego and self, but it's easy to get lost in the abstract.
Yeah, totally. I'm already feeling like my brain needs a reboot.
Well, the good news is this isn't just some heady philosophical concept. It's playing out in our lives right now, every single day.
Okay, so how do we actually apply all of this to like our daily routines? Give us something tangible to work with.
All right. It all starts with awareness. The first step is simply noticing your ego at work.
Okay.
Pay attention to those moments when you're seeking external validation, comparing yourself to others, or feeling threatened by someone else's success.
So it's like becoming a mindful observer of your own like thought patterns, especially the ones that seem to be, coming from that me-centered place.
Exactly, yeah. And as you become more aware of your ego's influence, you can start to create a little space between your thoughts and your actions. You don't have to be, controlled by those ego-driven impulses.
So it's not about eradicating the ego entirely, but more about learning to manage it. To use it as a tool rather than letting it use you.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, the ego isn't inherently bad. It's part of what makes us human. But when it's running the show unchecked, it can lead to a lot of unnecessary suffering.
The source material actually gave some really, really relatable examples of this ego self dynamic.
Oh yeah.
Things like public speaking. And social media.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, those are perfect examples. Think about public speaking. The ego might focus on the fear of judgment, the potential for embarrassment, or the need to impress the audience.
Yeah.
It's all about self-preservation and self-promotion.
Whereas the self, on the other hand, might be more focused on the message, the connection with the audience and the opportunity to share something meaningful.
Precisely, yeah. And the same dynamic plays out on social media. The ego seeks likes, followers, and external validation. It thrives on comparison and competition. The self, on the other hand, seeks authentic connection, genuine expression, and a sense of belonging.
It's almost like the ego is constantly asking, like, how do I look?
Right.
While the self is asking, how can I connect?
That's brilliant. I might have to steal that one. And the key is to notice which voice is driving your actions in any given moment. Are you posting that photo to impress others, or to share something you genuinely care about? Are you engaging in that online debate to prove you're right, or to learn from a different perspective?
Okay, so awareness is the first step. What are some other practical things people can do to cultivate a stronger sense of self? And maybe even quiet down that ego chatter a bit.
Well, one powerful practice is mindfulness. It's about bringing your attention to the present moment. Observing your thoughts and feelings without judgment.
Okay.
And connecting with a sense of peace.
Mindfulness seems to be like the buzzword these days.
Yeah.
Everyone's talking about it, but what does it actually look like in practice?
It can be as simple as taking a few minutes each day to sit quietly and focus on your breath, or it could be, bringing more awareness to everyday activities like eating, walking, or even washing the dishes. The point is to train your mind to stay present, rather than getting lost in the swirling thoughts of the past or the worries of the future.
So by being more present, we're less likely to get swept away by those ego-driven anxieties and desires.
Exactly, yeah. Mindfulness helps us create a little distance from those thoughts, allowing us to observe them without getting caught up in them. It's like watching watching clouds drift by in the sky.
Yeah.
You see them, you acknowledge them, but you don't need to chase after them or try to control them.
Okay, I like that. I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So awareness and mindfulness are key. What else?
Another powerful practice is to connect with your values. What truly matters to you deep down. What kind of person do you want to be in the world?
This sounds a lot like what we were talking about earlier with the self being more about our core values and sense of purpose.
It is, yeah. When you're clear about your values, you have a compass to guide your actions. It becomes easier to make choices that are aligned with your authentic self, rather than choices driven by ego fears or desires.
So if your value is kindness, for example, you're more likely to act with compassion in a challenging situation, rather than reacting defensively or aggressively, which might be the ego's default response.
Exactly, yeah. Connecting with your values helps you tap into a deeper sense of purpose, a sense of why that goes beyond the ego's limited concerns.
This is all starting to make a lot of sense. So we've got awareness, mindfulness, and connecting with values. Are there any other tools or practices that you find helpful in navigating this ego self territory?
Implicitly, yeah. One that I find particularly helpful is self-compassion.
Okay, so how is self-compassion different from say self-esteem?
Right. Self-esteem is often based on external validation, on achievements, accomplishments, or how others perceive us.
Yeah.
It can be very fragile because it's dependent on things outside of our control.
So it's like that ego-driven need to be seen as successful, as worthy, or better than others.
Right. Self-compassion, on the other hand, is about treating ourselves with kindness, understanding, and acceptance, regardless of our perceived successes or failures. It's about recognizing that we're all human. We all make mistakes, and we all deserve to be treated with care and respect.
This resonates with me. It's like offering ourselves the same kind of grace and understanding that we would offer to a close friend or loved one.
Exactly, yeah. And the amazing thing about self-compassion is that it actually helps to quiet down that critical inner voice of the ego. When we're able to offer ourselves kindness and understanding, we're less likely to get caught up in self-judgment, self-doubt, and the constant need for external validation.
So self-compassion is almost like an antidote to the ego's like harsh self-criticism.
Precisely, yeah. And it's a much more sustainable way to cultivate a sense of inner peace and well-being when we're able to accept ourselves as we are, flaws and all.
Yeah.
We create a foundation for genuine growth and transformation.
All of this is really resonating with me. Awareness, mindfulness, connecting with values and self-compassion. These are all powerful tools for navigating the complex relationship between ego and self.
And the beauty of these practices is that they're available to anyone, regardless of their background, beliefs, or spiritual inclinations. They're simple yet profound ways to cultivate a greater sense of peace, purpose, and connection in our lives.
It's almost like these practices help us shift from that narrow ego-driven perspective to a wider, more compassionate and interconnected way of being in the world.
Exactly, yeah. And the more we practice these tools, the more natural they become. It's like strengthening a muscle. Over time, it becomes easier to recognize the ego's influence, to make choices that are aligned with our values, and to cultivate a sense of inner peace that's not dependent on external circumstances.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I'm wondering what are your thoughts on the future of all of this, especially in the context of all these technological advancements we were talking about earlier. Are we headed for like an ego-driven dystopia or a self-actualized utopia? That's the $1 million question, isn't it? Are we going to end up in a world where technology just amplifies our ego-driven tendencies.
Yeah.
Or will it help us like evolve towards a more self-aware, interconnected future?
I don't have a crystal ball, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I do think the future is far from predetermined. It's going to depend on the choices we make, both individually and collectively, about how we develop and use technology.
So you're saying it's not technology itself. That's the problem.
Yeah.
But how we choose to engage with it.
Exactly. Yeah. Remember those mind-bending possibilities we were exploring earlier?
Yeah.
Virtual reality, artificial intelligence, quantum computing, space exploration. Each of these has the potential to either amplify or diminish the ego, to connect us more deeply, or create new forms of separation.
Let's revisit those, starting with VR.
Okay.
We were talking about how it could challenge our sense of a fixed self, leading to more fluid identities.
Right. Imagine a world where you can seamlessly shift between being, a CEO in one virtual environment,
Yeah.
and a rainforest explorer in another.
Yeah.
What happens to your sense of who you are when you can experience such radically different perspectives?
It's like VR could become like a training ground
Yeah.
for the self,
Yeah.
allowing us to step outside the limitations of our ego-driven identities,
Right.
and connect with a wider range of experiences and perspectives.
Yeah, and that could have, profound implications for empathy and compassion. If we can literally walk in each other's shoes, even if those shoes belong to a virtual avatar, could that lead to a more understanding and compassionate society?
It's a tantalizing possibility.
Yeah.
And then there's AI.
Right.
Which is evolving at an almost unimaginable pace.
It is.
We were discussing the possibility of AI developing its own form of self-awareness.
Right. Which begs the question: what does it even mean for something to be self-aware? Is it simply a matter of processing information and making decisions, or is there something more to it?
This is where things get really philosophical.
Oh, yeah.
How do we define consciousness, let alone determine whether a machine possesses it?
It's a mystery that has captivated philosophers and scientists for centuries. But imagine for a moment, an AI system that can not only, learn from its experiences, but also reflect on those experiences and modify its behavior accordingly. Imagine an AI that can understand its own limitations and strive to overcome them.
That sounds eerily similar to what we humans do.
Right.
We learn, we reflect, we adapt.
Yeah.
Are we essentially creating machines in our own image?
It's certainly a possibility, and if AI does develop a form of self-awareness that's even remotely similar to ours, it will force us to rethink our place in the universe. We'll no longer be the only beings on this planet capable of conscious thought.
It's a mind-blowing prospect, both exciting and a little bit daunting. The potential for collaboration.
Yeah.
And co-creation.
Yeah.
With intelligent machines is immense, but so are the potential risks.
Absolutely, yeah. And this is where the importance of aligning our technological advancements with our values becomes crucial.
Yeah.
If we're creating machines that are capable of learning and evolving, we need to ensure that their values are aligned with ours. Values like compassion, cooperation, and a respect for all life.
So it's not just about the technology itself, but about the intentions behind it and the choices we make in how we develop and use it.
See, exactly. Yeah, technology is a tool, and like any tool, it can be used for good or for ill. The future of ego and self in a technological age will depend largely on the choices we make today.
Okay, so we've touched on VR and AI. What about those other mind-bending frontiers like quantum computing and space exploration?
Yeah.
How might they shape our understanding of ego and scene.
Quantum computing, while still in its nascent stages,
Yeah.
has the potential to revolutionize
Yeah.
our understanding of reality. Quantum mechanics suggests that the universe is far more interconnected and mysterious
Yeah.
than we ever imagined.
I remember reading about how in the quantum realm, like particles, they can exist in multiple states at once,
Right.
and even influence each other across vast distances.
Yeah.
It's as if the laws of classical physics simply don't apply.
That's right. Yeah, and some physicists believe that consciousness itself may be a quantum phenomenon, which could mean that our sense of self is not limited to our physical bodies.
Whoa, that's a big one.
Yeah.
Are we talking about the possibility of like a multi-dimensional self?
Yeah.
A self that exists like beyond the constraints of space and time?
It's an idea that some serious scientists are exploring.
Wow.
And if it turns out to be true, it could radically change our understanding of who we are and how we relate to the universe. You know? The ego's focus on separation and individuality might start to seem very, very small indeed.
Mind officially blown. And then there's space exploration, which is literally expanding our horizons,
Right.
beyond the confines of this planet.
As we venture further into space, we're confronted with the sheer vastness of the cosmos, and the realization that our pale blue dot is just one tiny speck in a sea of billions of galaxies.
We talked earlier about the overview effect, that profound shift in perspective that astronauts often experience when they see Earth from space.
Right, and it's not just about the awe-inspiring visuals. It's about a fundamental shift in consciousness, a recognition that we are part of something much greater than ourselves. The ego's concerns can seem quite insignificant when you're gazing down at Earth from orbit.
It's as if like the zoomed in lens of the ego suddenly pulls back.
Yeah.
To reveal a much wider, more expansive view of reality.
Precisely, yeah. And as we continue to explore space, our understanding of ego and self will likely continue to evolve. We might develop a more cosmic sense of self, one that's less bound by the limitations of our individual identities, and more aligned with the interconnectedness of all life in the universe.
So it seems like the future of ego and self is like a wide open frontier, full of possibilities and potential pitfalls. It's going to be an amazing journey.
Indeed, yeah. And the more we can cultivate awareness, wisdom, and compassion along the way, the better equipped we'll be to navigate the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into ego versus self on Beyond the Mirror of the Neural Dharma's Eye, Volume 1, Episode 3. We hope you've gained some new insights into these complex concepts and their potential impact on your life in the future.
Remember the exploration of ego and self is an ongoing journey. Keep asking questions, stay curious, and above all, be kind to yourself along the way.
We'll see you on our next deep dive.